And thanks for holding this hearing, which has been fascinating. Learned a lot about sports betting just asking my college-age son about it, and learned just how extraordinarily popular it is, how it really has become a cultural phenomenon on college campuses. Governor Baker, I just want to say I'm originally from Framingham. Have a lot of Schiff family and Glovsky family still in the state, all who speak very highly of you, and you managed to leave after 2 terms as popular as when you went in, which is a remarkable feat for any governor these days in these challenging times. So congratulations. I wanted to ask a couple questions, and Governor, I'd like to ask you just very generally, sports have always been a dominant feature on campus, and they contribute so much to the life of a campus, and not just the student athletes, but all the students and alumni, and drive a lot of the resources to the campuses. Now this seems to be so accentuated by sports betting, driving more attention, more money, more resources to this one part of campus life. Is there a risk that everything else becomes overwhelmed by all the money going into sports and sports betting on campuses? And how do campuses preserve some balance in the light of that, and the contract that the chairman was talking about, Bill Belichick, and how much is devoted to this one feature? And the second question for anyone is, how does this throttling work, where people who are successful are throttled down and can't compete as much, can't bet as much, and people who are losing their shirt are targeted? Have states tried to regulate that as they have with prop betting? I think prop betting should be banned. It sounds like it does nothing but create enormous problems for athletes. But how does this other phenomenon of throttling work, and is there any justification for it?
I can speak to the first question, not so much to the second one. I would just say that first of all, there's 500,000 student athletes. There are 1,100 schools, and for the vast majority of them, the experience on campus is not driven in many respects by a really significant growth in revenue. I mean, most of them look a lot like they looked when they were playing these games 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But they teach all the same lessons that all sports teach in terms of your ability. And by the way, Senator, congratulations, University of Vermont, a classic example of one of those kinds of schools that won the D1 soccer championship yesterday.
You can continue.
I can continue, yeah.
Let's not forget the Broncos Division II leaders in California.
Of course, the Broncos, yes, that's right, Cal Poly.
Feeling competitive with Vermont right now.
But those are great examples of exactly what we're talking about. I think the big issue for us coming in has been enhance the benefits that we make available to student athletes, come up with a model, working with the plaintiffs in several particular cases, to create a model to provide additional benefits to the kids who play at the schools that make the most money, and then do what we can, especially in this space, to provide as much protection to them as we can, and to give them a lot of guidance and advice. We run the largest sports betting integrity program on a per game basis in the world. We also run the largest in-person education program for student athletes of any kind, anywhere in the world around sports betting. And we've put a tremendous amount of effort into driving this conversation around prop betting, and have had a fair amount of success, to the point where we have 19 states left we need to move. And we also track all the abuse and harassment that comes at student athletes who participate in our major championships, and created a fair amount of public conversation about that when we released that data earlier this year. I think the challenges, especially at the highest end, are profound, and I think we should be doing everything we can to help kids there. And in particular, the prop bet one is a great opportunity to do something in the right direction.
Senator, if I may, to your point about the prevalence of wagering on campus, Charlie's group did a survey that showed the majority of young male college students have placed a sports bet in the past year. The other striking finding from our study is that one of the biggest predictive factors of sports betting is educational status. unlike other forms of gambling where it's negatively correlated, the higher your education, the less likely you are to bet. In America today, the more education you have, the more likely you are to bet on sports. So there's this cohesion now of sports and athletics, athletics and education, which we've always had. But now that gambling is so tied in with sports, now education is one of the biggest predictive factors. We don't see that with sports betting anywhere else in the world, and we don't see that with any other form of gambling in America. So there's a real concern about how we reach these young, educated men who have this huge propensity to bet on sports and unfortunately are at highest risk for gambling addiction.
Senator, may I take the second part of your question very quickly? I run a patient treatment group, and my patients know I'm here today, and I asked them if there was one message I could deliver. And 14 of the 15 all told me the same thing, and that is let elected officials know how they are targeted to keep them gambling. I'll make an offer to you that I've done with Senator Blumenthal, Congressman Tonko, done with the New York Times and CNN and CBS. I would gladly sit down with your staff members, any staff member, and show you while we watch a game together how the rapid fire and the VIP programs keep people in action. I think members of this committee need to be educated on that so it can be addressed.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Schiff.